Okay. So this is going to be interesting. We're going to spend a lot of time together. There's a lot of firsts going on right here. This is my first time teaching, sort of. First time with these rigs, first time with this sound clip, first time having people watch me animate, sort of. I've done this at work a few times. So this is more or less what I'm planning on doing is so I'm gonna take this shot as far as I possibly can over the next 10 hours. If I can finish this in 10 hours, I'll be pretty impressed. 130 frames. Hopefully it's doable. While we're talking, if you guys have any questions about anything, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, or any tangent you would like me to go on, I'm more than happy to talk about whatever. I've done this demo not to this extent at work, just to talk about workflow and stuff like that, and it's been fairly well received. But you'll have to bear with me as this is all new. I'm used to having 2 big monitors and all kinds of stuff. So this is going to be fun. Also, I haven't animated in like 2 months. So, do you guys have any questions before I just kind of jump in, or do you guys just want to just do this?
Do it.
Okay. Okay. Well, so this is our layout. This is just a little scene I mocked up. The clip that I chose, I can play for you real quick. I'm going to turn off the camera so you can't see that yet. This is from my favorite movie of all time.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
So hey, hi, come on in. So yeah, like I said, this is my favorite movie. This is a clip I always wanted to animate, but in school it was always a little too short, or there's like the unabridged version, which is like 45 seconds, and that's like a short film. So it's perfect for this demo, and I finally get to animate it. So wanted to do something that was a little more full body, so that I could talk more about how I approach that type of scene, and then Brent this afternoon is going to talk more about the close-up, more subtle stuff. Our workflows are slightly different, but not dramatically so. So I more or less have two ways of approaching my shots. The first one is not how I'm going to approach this one, so you're just going to have to just kind of imagine what I'm talking about. And it's for like super physical shots, and also super cartoony shots. So one good example is I did the shots on Wreck-It Ralph where Ralph is chasing King Candy. Did you all see Wreck-It Ralph?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's 100% nodding. That's great. Otherwise, you're out. I did the shots where Ralph is chasing King Candy around the gumdrop, and which a lot had to happen in a very small amount of time. And then I wanted to show the contrast of how King Candy moves versus how Ralph moves and everything else. So for the King Candy shots, I created a sphere, colored the sphere half purple, half white or whatever to kind of represent, so I could see the axis of rotation on the ball. And then I literally just did like a bouncing ball animation for King Candy just to show path of action, texture, all that stuff. So listening to the dialogue, he's doing like so I would actually I'd bounce him where I thought there'd be a step, or where I thought there would be any type of like pointing or something like that. I'd kind of shake the ball to imply motion later, and I did kind of a pass at really it's 2 shots that I did. It's the one where he runs and then zips behind, and then there's the one where he kind of zips back and forth before Ralph picks up the jelly bean or whatever. So that is my one workflow. So I'd start with that, do the bouncing ball, then I actually sort of transferred that animation onto King Candy's hips and just kind of bounced his hips around, and then animated his legs, just removing, I just kind of hid his head and his chest and everything. So it was a bit more or less bouncing ball with legs, bouncing ball with the torso, bouncing ball with torso and arms. The arms I actually did a 2D pass of. So I would just had kind of a bouncing ball, torso, squash and stretch with legs and everything going. And then I knew I wanted a lot of action on the arms, so I went ahead and did like a 2D pass on that because it was just a lot faster to experiment. I had multiple limbs and stuff in there, and so it was just way easier, way less time consuming to approach that 2D. And then layer.
Is there software at Disney to do that, to do 2D, like right in Maya?
Yeah, so we can do like a Play Blast. It's called D-Blast. Everything's D something at Disney. But it's D-Blast, and we have markups that we can do. So it's what we use for dailies and rounds and stuff like that if we're drawing over someone else's work. So you can just go ahead and do 2D pass with that. And we're actually working on a tool of getting those back into Maya using the grease pencil tool. So that'll be even more helpful. Point the camera.
Your preview one?
Oh, chow. Did I lose that somehow? Do you want me to do the, is that still running? No. It's cool. I'll just keep talking. Sorry, I just want to get this set up properly. Boomski. There he goes. So that's the same workflow I use on Entangled. I did some shots of Flynn falling down the sluice. Did you all see Tangled? Okay. All right, you are nodding. So the shot of the sluice falling down and Flynn's kind of running across it and Rapunzel's picking up her hair and all that nonsense. That was also a bouncing ball for me because I had to animate the sluice breaking apart, and there's no real place to start on something like that. You can't really do one without the other, so I kind of went back and forth with a bouncing ball just so that it's way faster, and then use that to dictate, again, kind of the hips and the jumps and stuff like that for Flynn, and then contrasting that with the texture of Rapunzel on the bottom that I could then kind of match to a run cycle and everything else, just so I could organize the shot in where you should be looking, timing, spacing, all that jazz. Kind of roughing in my poses with a squashed ball for, a squashed pose for later. So that is kind of my cartoony, broad action stuff. I also did the sword fighting stuff, which that was kind of just straight ahead. Hope this works kind of, methodology where there's no real way of shooting video reference sword fighting a horse, so it was just a lot of guess and check and just feeling out. The big thing about my workflow, as you'll see in this example, is I like to work from the hips out. This is a big thing with Patrick Osborne as well, where it's really, I try to pay attention to the masses and the weight of each individual element and how it relates to the other elements and how they push and pull on one another and how that dictates a pose and how that dictates your spacing and everything else. That was a big thing I learned at Rhythm and Hues working on Hulk, was just how to show the weight, what is light, what is heavy, and how, so we had to do all the muscle jiggle and flexing and all that stuff, and really thinking about what muscles are driving what in order to give it some type of believability so that you know when to break those rules. So for the cartoony stuff, you can still make it feel physical, but within the rules of that world. So that brings me to method 2, which is for acting shots for bipedal characters, even for non-bipedal characters. I shot video reference for Maximus shots on Tangled, just because I like being able to, and I'll use myself most of the time. Sometimes I'll get someone else if I think they're more specific to the shot. My Mother Gothel shots, I shot video reference of myself. I'm a pretty cute little girl. But anything that is a character just being a human, I like to shoot video reference for, even for King Candy, stuff like that. My more push stylized stuff, Gene shots, all that in Ralph, I shot video reference, and then it's a matter of picking and choosing what you want from the video reference, right? So let's just jump into it. So here is, and do you guys see that? You do see that. It's picture in picture for you. Don't mind that. But here is my completely untimed video reference. Let's play through.
You get.
Hold on. Do you all know how to bring in image plane? I assume you do, but let's go through it just in case. So this is our video reference room at Disney, actually. So I shot this the other day, and what I like to do is break it down. It's shot at 30 frames per second, actually on purpose. We animate in 24. I shoot my video reference in 30. You'll see why. It gives me extra frames to play with, and it forces me to not line up frame for frame my video reference with the dialogue and just let it play through. So I break it down into JPEGs or whatever. Actually, Marlon did that for me because he's an awesome guy. Oh, you did it as an MOV.
Yeah.
Also works. Doesn't really matter.
Can you retime it?
Yes. Yes. I think. Let's bump the cache though, so that it doesn't slow us down. And then let's do a play blast. A D-blast. That should be fine. Okay.
Does that flash to get it to run?
Yeah, so that'll cache it locally so that it won't bog down your scene. When you're framing through, it isn't constantly referencing those images. So usually, if there's no animation in the scene, you can hit play in Maya, and you can see it go. But we'll play blast real quick so you can watch it in real time, and so that it can cache. Also, not used to letting people see my video reference, so enjoy that pleasure. And you get a little preview of what we're going to do here. So again, I shot probably, I don't know, 6 to 10 takes of this the other night, and then what I'll do sometimes is pick and choose different pieces from different clips. I don't spend a lot of time in editing software or anything else making stuff line up. As you'll see from my workflow, it really doesn't matter. We good here? Alright, let's move this out of the way.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Alright, so as you can see, it doesn't line up at all. So just like if I did kind of a rough edit between clips, doesn't really matter, because the big thing for me is I use reference as reference, and I try to not match it exactly. I think it's a pitfall that a lot of students will fall into, is shoot some video reference, rotoscope it, but you're not making choices in that situation. You're kind of, and you're not learning as much either. You know, you're not learning anything that you can use in a shot where you can't have video reference. You know, so what I like to use the video reference for is just, again, going back to the weight of the different areas, analyzing that stuff out of the video reference. So I'll bring it in just like we have here on an image plane. So view, image plane, import image. You find your file, voila, it shows up. I like to have it so that it is floating in space, so that if I'm animating in this view, or if I'm animating in this view, I'm going to hide the boss because he's just obnoxious. It's always there, because eventually I'll be looking at them side by side and kind of matching poses and timing. So, timing.
I think like your
That's my
camera
name.
is going in your...
Are you serious? What is happening here? Is whenever I switch... No.
Anyway, just keep it.
Okay. Thanks, man. We need Linux up in here. Alright, so let's go into retiming video reference. So again, like I said, I do 30 frames per second on purpose so that it forces me to make a choice right up front. So I will retime my video reference one way or another. You can either break the connection on the frame extension, which is actually my preferred method, or you can animate the offset, which is more or less just you're going to get an animation curve that you can then dictate. Let's go with this method. So now you have the option of, you're literally picking what pose of your video reference goes on what frame of your acting. So because a lot of times when you shoot video reference for dialogue, you're not necessarily going to be timed perfectly. You might be reacting to the dialogue a little bit too much. you might be ahead of one thing or after something else. And then it's animation. You want to exaggerate things. You want to be very specific with each choice. So you might want to add a hold or zip through something a lot faster to make it a little bit more fun. That's what this little section will be. So let's just play around. So I'll usually just set one at the beginning, set one at the end, just to get it generally back into the same ballpark, and then I'll go through and kind of break down the video reference just like you would animation. Let's go a little bit past. Alright. What do we have by default here, Marlon? Sweet. Okay. So now we have it roughly retimed. It's not bad. Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about the acting you're going for and what
Yeah, it's actually...
is it overacting and what things you avoid while acting at your shot?
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think at Disney, one of the big things we focus on is the internal monologue, subtext of the acting. So a lot of times that's where we'll start. What's the point of the shot? Where's the character coming from? Where's the character going to? Everything else. So with this shot, obviously you all know it's from Willy Wonka. He's seated, he's frustrated, he's been through a long day. I liked that part of it. I wanted it to be a little bigger, a little broader, and full body. So I mocked up this scene of a guy basically telling off his boss or something like that. So the way I approached it was I wanted him to be at his wit's end, but not crazy. I think too often people will go over the top cartoony, and it starts to lose a little bit of the genuine feeling. You start to lose what's going on inside their head because it's just motion, 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 motion. Also why I like to use video reference, because it forces you to stay a little grounded. And then also just trying to act from the inside out and put your, I don't know. In this case, I was projecting at a boss that will remain unnamed in my past. And I guess, it's just like any actor or whatever. I'm not an actor, but just trying to let that bleed through into my body. I don't really like to use my face, so because I make weird facial expressions, but I'll usually use it for timing of squashes and stretches and blinks especially. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of using video references. You get a lot of that nuanced stuff that you might not otherwise pick up on, but I don't like to use the literal shapes that my face is making, because again, I don't want it to look like me, which is also a pitfall people fall into using video reference, is they just go, oh, okay, I see that shape of that brow, and they put it on there, and it's like, well, that's you. You might be toothy. I'm very toothy, but your character isn't necessarily toothy. So making the choices where you're keeping it specific to the character, but using your reference to, again, pull the masses around. Okay, let's get back into this. So I think that needs to be just a little faster. And I messed up my tangents already.
Zach,
Yes, sir.
when you look at demo reels, what kind of sound clips do you usually like seeing on demo reels, and which ones do you avoid?
I would avoid characters doing nothing unless you can do it really, really well, where you're putting a lot in there. I think a lot of times people try to go subtle, but then they kind of miss the point of what a subtle shot is supposed to be in getting the life in the eyes, and they do very little. Those are really hard shots. Subtle shots, as you'll see with Brent, are really hard shots to do when they're not moving a lot, moving just the right amount. I like seeing variety personally, but the biggest thing is just entertainment and believability. If you can make me believe that performance is genuine, it doesn't really matter if it's funny or if it's passionate. I wanted to do something with the character yelling, just because it seemed fun, you know? Like, I like to do everything. I did cartoony stuff with King Candy, I did crying stuff with Rapunzel, you know, and all of those present different challenges. Not everyone likes to do that, and that's totally fine too. We have animators at Disney who are they like doing cute shots, and they fucking rock them. Sorry if I can't use that word. And then there's some people who do just comedy, some people who do just serious. I mean, but most people like to get some diversity. But I think for demo reel purposes, contrast is always nice to see. A character who starts in one emotion and changes. If you can pull that off well, that's always really, really nice. For me, when I'm looking at demo reels, and it differs from supervisor to supervisor when we're looking at demo reels, I look at the eyes always. You can polish it until it's, you know, completely done, but if you missed the life in the eyes, you failed, in my opinion. You know, you can do all kinds of great squash and stretch and fun things, but if I don't believe that character is living and breathing, I don't care. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a performance where people believe it and care about it and want to, you know, in our case at Disney, want to spend an hour and a half watching that character and then buy some stuff.
You get a piece of dialogue, what's like your planning process for it? Do you just kind of come up with your idea and then go straight into video reference?
I go straight to video reference. For me, well, I usually do layout. If it's like a test shot like this, I need a layout to wrap my brain around, where are the landmarks in the scene. And I usually have a pretty good idea in my head, you know, A, B, C, where I want to go. Like for this one, I tried a few where I threw down the papers on the first beat. You get nothing. And then Good Day Sir became kind of at that point. So that was my first instinct, and then I was like, this isn't working, so I usually explore it mostly in video reference. It depends on the shot. Sometimes it's sketches, especially if it's a very physical shot, you know, bouncing ball and then sketches and then blocking. But for me, I like to act it out and just to feel it out. Sometimes I'll skip the video reference and just, you know, feel it out as I'm blocking. But I'm not the best draftsman, so my sketches aren't informative enough, and I spend so long being like, this sucks, that it isn't really useful anymore, and it slows me down. This is what I have found the most efficient process, because I can block this shot out hopefully before we leave today, because once you've retimed everything and you've made your choice with your video reference, you know that your timing and roughly your posing is done. You just go through and you start banging out the poses, which is just kind of time consuming. I have a feeling I'm going to want to make this a little faster. Piece of shit. Let's try that. So this one didn't require a ton of changes. Some do more than others. A lot of times I will have two pieces roughly cut together, and you know, I'll have to actually jump between one frame and another just using the animation curve. But I like using the frame extension, the frame number, because looking at the graph of that curve. Thanks, man. Looking at the graph of that curve, I can wrap my brain around it. We're also used to looking at animation curves that is like a very clear, like I sped that up, I slowed this down, and using the literal number is just, is it going to pop up? Boom. Let's see what it looks like.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
So, just gets a little more snap. It's, again, I mean, exaggeration, right, is one of the principles of animation, and you get that in timing and spacing and posing and squash and stretch and everything, and this is one of those times where I won't use this pose exactly, but getting that timing and that snap in there, I think is going to be way more fun and way more animation-y without going animation times. You know, a lot of times, you know, at work, a lot of people say avoid animation with a capital A. That's where people are like anticing an antic to an antic to an antic to do something, and it's like just you know, make it clear, get to the point. And again, that's why I jump straight to video reference. So.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Okay, I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Good? All right. Still awkward watching myself video reference, just with people around.
Preview window?
Ah.
I think it gets rid of it when you.
Oh, Play Blast?
I think so. So kind of get in the habit.
Okay, word. Right on. Okay, so then we block. I like 2D pan zoom. I don't know about you guys, but I like to.
You guys know what that is?
Do you guys know this? It's what is that? Backslash, forward slash. It's forward slash. And then you can. This is not moving my camera around. I can turn it off, pop back to my normal framing. But a lot of the time, I will turn the face off, because at this stage I'm just looking at the gesture of the pose. This is more or less, you know, some people will do a sketch pass or whatever else based on their video reference. Does the knee follow, Marlon? Sorry. The pull vector, is up?
Maybe you can set it. Your attributes.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Ciao. Love it. Okay. And then are we in? What's that?
Check if it works.
Object. Alright, this will be fine. Okay. And then I will usually go through and, as a first pass, just kind of copy my first pose. Not making a ton of choices just yet. Just the hip swivel. You guys, I am an IK chest person, just because I like to be able to track the chest, you know, looking at like that little square later on when I'm polishing. I like to have that control and not have to check that square based off of a rotation down here. So that's just my thing. Next space off. World space head, and I am a world space FK guy. So let's set that.
Can you talk about that a little bit? When you use FK, when you use FK, or why wouldn't you use a certain way for certain scenarios?
I don't like IK very much. We're back. Why does that go away? Can I try it again? Did I turn it off when I did it that time? Okay. I try to use IK as little as possible. It's just for me. It doesn't. It's so much work to make it feel connected. You're constantly fighting it. I get that, like, it's easier to track the arc of the hands, but it's just my person. And some people are like primarily IK hand people. I don't. Do you have a hand library?
A what?
Hand library?
There's a little square in front of the fingers, and
Ooh.
then the attributes give you.
Sweet.
The pretty good.
That'll do.
What do you want to go at?
No, that'll do. Some people are primarily IK people. I try to avoid it at all cost. I'm just going to do this kind of rough for now, alright guys?
You can keep your fingers on top of that, by the way. You're not just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. That's awesome, actually. Look, it's like exactly like my hand. It's perfect.
Would you switch to IK, pose the arm, and then put it back in?
Absolutely. Yes. I just like FK for the eventual process of polish, even though that kind of contradicts itself just because it's harder to polish FK arms, but at least then you're going to get the connectivity of the arms to the body, which when I animate in IK, I'm like constantly forcing that. Also, I'm a big chicken neck person. All of my shots, you'll see if you look at Tangled anywhere I'm doing this. That was probably me. I don't know why. It's just how I move around. I'm awkward looking. All right. Okay, so that's not bad. I kind of feel like we got a pretty decent pose. Not matching it exactly, but getting the gesture of it while trying to make choices along the way about just good posing. You know, I will do a pass later where I kind of go through all of the poses and try to clean them up, but I try to make as much of a directed decision straight out of the gate. Let's just angle the entire shot just a tiny bit. Okay. Select all. Booyah. Okay. And then this is where it gets fun. So what I like to do is I'm gonna turn off the sound for a little bit because my poses are not dictated by the sound whatsoever. I am just looking at. I'm more or less looking for, like, if you were to analyze animation that's done in a movie, and you're like, that looks like a key pose, that looks like, you know, one of their keyframes. I do that with myself. You know, where does it look like I did a key pose? You know, and where am I going to need a key down the road? So you watch the paper, it hits an apex right there, right? That's a pretty good indicator that we're going to need a pose there. And then, oh, I don't have my, okay, I have to switch my brain for my hotkeys here. Then I'll just kind of frame back and forth, like that one to that one. I know I'm going to need that one, but maybe I will. Actually, that one works out to be pretty good for the hips too. So if you watch the hips, that's where I'm going to start. Just kind of frame back and forth on those and say what is the biggest thing? What is the biggest thing changing between those two? Get this guy back up there. I don't know why he keeps disappearing. Sorry, Mom.
Now, you know what? I'm going to film it with the other computer. So you don't need to leave it up. You can actually.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'll wait until you're set up. Just for you, pal.
That's the one.
So since you're going to be animating the IK chest, do you ever use the FK for the body then as well?
I probably won't for this demo. It's interesting that's not working. I probably won't. No. I like to touch as few controls as possible. Eventually, I'll go in and I'll plus some poses with bend bows and stuff like that. But my first pass, I won't do a ton of hands, and I won't do just because I like to keep it IK feet, hips, hip swivel, chest, arms, neck, and head. Really though, I won't even touch the neck that much, just because I like this action as well. Same reason I like IK chest. I like to translate the head around. It is more difficult because you start doing that, you start getting off model. But at the end of the day, you're making a 2D image. So if I need to cheat the head over here, it's way easier to do that than it is to like move this, scale it, whatever else.
So with the neck, you're just putting it into a pose and then more or less leaving it.
Because that's more or less where, like, if you watch my neck throughout this, it's pushed. It's an aggressive piece of dialogue. So it's kind of forward the whole time. So that was just kind of a choice, just, you know, to keep it consistent. And then from there, I'll plus it. I mean, I might have some animation on here, but it'll be a very simple curve by the time we're done. Okay, so we pop back and forth, and it's like, okay, looking at the hips, that stuff seems like it's moving pretty well. Looks like the toe comes up just a little bit. This has the foot roll stuff, right? Oh, no, it's IK. Okay, sorry. Foot roll. And this is going to be the kind of slow, painful process for you guys, so I apologize.
If you have like two characters that are like both interacting in the scene, what do you do for your reference with that? Will you act out both things?
Yeah.
And then you just try to posit the video together or something?
I don't even bother with that. I just have 2 image planes, just kind of layer them next to each other. Especially if there's dialogue, it's obviously harder if it's a pantomime shot. If it's 2 characters interacting, I don't mind acting with other people. I don't do as good of acting when there's someone there. I think it's kind of the nature of who we are as animators. It's why we're not in front of a camera. We don't like people watching us. So I usually, my acting suffers a little bit in that situation. Let me change that hand pose. This is going to bother me. You got to flex, right? Okay.
There's a picker for the hand if you need it.
Oh, is there? Sweet. I need to scale this bad boy down. Cheater. Okay.
Do you work in step, Zach?
Absolutely. I am not. A lot of people love layered. It doesn't work for me. I mean, just based on this demo, you'll see, like, I am very pose based. What did I do? Okay, that's gonna be fun. Okay, let's hide this for now. How about that? Doesn't really matter, anyways. My constraint broken?
I think it's constrained. You key it, doesn't it unconstrained?
I constrained the group above it, so I'm not sure what's. So it should be fine. Anyhow, I don't work well with. So I'm exaggerating some things. The shoulder isn't moving up quite that much. I'm also a big proponent of not over animating, but exaggerating clavicles. I think it's an area that people too often will avoid. Whoa. Simply because it's kind of they're kind of a pain in the ass, but this one. But it's one of those things like hands where if done right, man, they give you so much more just believability. Okay. So there we go. Just kind of go through one and one. Where's that mouth animation coming from? Alright, whatever. Okay, same thing here. Just kind of framing through, looking for my next key. So for me, it is this frame right here. Just happens to also be 6 frames later. 6 frames. I don't pay attention to that either. I don't try to keep my keys on 2s or 3s or 4s or whatever. I use Tween Machine super extensively. We have our own version at Disney for legal purposes. but I use Tween Machine super heavy, so it doesn't really matter if my keys are spaced out on even frames or any of that stuff. I'm gonna grab a percentage anyways, because going back to Marlon's question, I work in stepped because I like poses. I like offsets in poses. I don't like offset in time because it's not predictable. So people will animate one thing and then offset the lower arm from the upper arm by a frame to get drag. You're not making a choice at that point, in my opinion. I would rather make the choice of what that pose looks like and what that spacing is and craft it, rather than letting the computer decide what that is going to look like. Obviously you can always tweak it from there, but it just starts to get kind of messy. I like to look at it as one whole pose. Okay, select body. Again, just being like, okay, between these two, what's the big motion here, right? So we're gonna come forward on the foot quite a bit. We're going to lose these guys. Foot roll back. Let's do some ball pivot, heel spin. Heel pivot. Now, turn it over this way a little bit. One thing I think people miss a lot of time is the way you actually step. You land on the outside of your, like the back corner of your heel. So many times in animation I see this, and it drives me crazy because it's just not like. And I'm super duck-footed, but hey, exaggeration, right? All right, let me just jump through this real quick. How big would you say that step is? Something like that.
It's like, do you, at the end of your walking, will you have something where the face is
Yes.
as worked out as the body, or you kind of...
By the time I'm done blocking, yes, absolutely. I don't do it on this first pass because I just want to make sure that the choice I made on the video reference stands true. Then I'll go through and add in. I mean, in our world, when we're showing to the directors and stuff like that, I usually will put in the basic expressions because you don't want to, how do I put it? You don't want to commit to too much too early because you want to make sure you're going in the right direction first. Because at the end of the day, you are responsible for getting it done in a certain amount of time. And as a supervisor, that's super true.
As an animator, the supervisor, do they show you the reference to the time that you...
Some people will, if they're comfortable with it. Some people will show it straight to the director. I did some shots on Ralph where Ralph is talking to Gene in the penthouse at the end. It's where Ralph is saying, like, I didn't mean for this to happen. I was tired of living alone in the garbage and all that. And Gene says, well, now you can live alone in the penthouse. And so I shot video reference for both sides of that conversation, put it to the dialogue, and put that in dailies for Rich to look at, because those were pretty heavy emotional shots. And I wanted to make sure that, again, I don't use my face necessarily. For those, I did quite a bit, because there was a lot of nuance, especially on the Ralph shots, for I wanted him to feel like he was searching for an answer, because he's at this place in his life where he's just kind of lost, and so I really wanted that feel to be strong, and so I showed the video reference to Rich and got notes on the acting itself. Those didn't require actually a ton of changes, but it was good just to get his eyes on it. So again, I'm not going down the wrong path for too long, because you only have a shot like this, 130 frames, one person-ish, 1.5 people. I don't know, I'd probably bid that at, a week and a half, 8 days maybe. to animate that shot, which might sound like a lot of time, but it goes with iterations and stuff like that. That goes pretty fast.
What would you say is the biggest difference, say, working on Tangled in terms of blocking and showing to the director and something like Wreck-It Ralph? Is there a styles difference between the directors?
Styles were very different. Byron and Nathan on Tangled had they knew exactly what the shots were supposed to be. They had very specific acting guidance for that. And their notes were super clear. Plus we had Glenn, which we can talk about ad nauseum, just what that meant to the process and everything, and John and Clay. So that show, it was very much show early and show often, even more so than Ralph. Rich liked to see things just a little bit more worked out to really understand the message you were trying to get across with the shot. Whereas Nathan and Byron, they really they were going to give you every beat, which was great. But they were also super collaborative in that, like, you know, I did those fencing shots with the horse, and they were like, a bunch of cool stuff has to happen. There you go. And I was like, great. You know, and they gave me the dialogue and everything else, and they were like, make them fight and make it awesome. Oh, and I did the stuff where he knocks out the guards and stuff, and they were like, there's 4 guards, and he has to knock them all out. You know, and which was really fun, actually. That was an amazing challenge. Okay, sorry again. Just looking at where I'm going to need keys eventually. The foot placement on this, I'll probably just set a key there, just so I'm getting, everything that I'm going to need for later. That was a really cool opportunity, though, just because I was new at the studio at that point, and I got to do the layout and the animation and just kind of figure out all that choreography. It was just something that they couldn't really board, because it was like they didn't have the set when they were boarding and everything else, you know, completely locked down. You wanted to do all these quick cuts, and it really depended on the choreography, so I got to work with layout on what that looked like. So that was really cool. But then there were other shots where, sorry, I don't like that at all. Sorry, I'm reneging on some of these choices. There were other shots where it was like, do this, you know, and you were like, got it, want it. But that was a really fun show. Rich was explore a little bit more. Rich just loved when it was funny, I would say. He was all about the entertainment of the shot. Get rid of the joints just in case I accidentally start keying the wrong stuff.
When you look at your video reference, when I look at video reference, I usually treat it as like drawing, where I look at proportions and where things land, where the elbows land in relation to another part of the body. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Where the eye goes and how you set that up?
Yeah, I do exactly that. Although it depends on the character. The more push the caricature, you know, King Candy, for example, you can't get those same relationships. Tangled was easier in that sense because, you know, I did a lot of Flynn, and Flynn was just a dude, which made it way easier to look for those relationships. But it's really, for me, it's about like I'm trying to maintain the angles, and I'm looking for my curves, my arcs in space before I even get there, so that later on when I go into spline, this is way easier. And then also I'm looking for where I screwed up in my staging in my reference, for like this hand behind the paper. I'm gonna have to come up with a solve for that kind of on the fly because my silhouette is just kind of murky, which I'm not going to like. We have a so we'll do some hands, but only every once in a while. And I'll break this all down later.
How many poses do you end up with? Is it like every 10th frame, every 5th frame?
By the time I'm like through like blocking plus, I would like to be on 2s and 3s, if possible. Simply because it just makes the polish so much easier because you've already made all the choices that you need to, and you've worked out. I have a hard time. Some people will do just like their key poses and then go into spline. I have a hard time seeing if ease ins, ease outs, all that stuff works unless I have completely broken it down and I see that in my blocking. Oops. That is not what I wanted. Whoa. Okay. So, but showing to the director, I usually have it on like 4s or 5s, depending. You know, if it's a really fast shot, it might be all the way down to 1s. It's literally as much information as you need in order to convey what's going to happen. I don't like leaving any guesswork for the director, like, oh yeah, this will look like this, right? Because I don't know what's in his head, he doesn't know what's in my head, and the quicker we can get on the same page, the quicker we're going to get the shot done, and we're going to get it to the level that he wants. Because at the end of the day, it's his shot, it's not mine. I want to get my vision in there, but sorry, I'm getting distracted. But I also want it to look like what he wants. Or she.
If it's a long shot and you just didn't have enough time to block all your ideas out, and you don't want to have the director have, any ideas of how it may look like, would you rather don't show it yet?
No, I mean it depends. It depends on your bid and the reality of in production. It really depends on your bid and how long you have. If you've eaten up half of your bid and you haven't shown to the director yet, you better show whatever you have to the director, because you just need to know if you're going in the right direction, if you have any chance at all of finaling the shot. I'm going to jump way ahead on this one, because from here to here, there wasn't a whole lot changing the feet. Just a little bit of a jump, but I'll break this down later. I'm just looking for this big pose change here. Same thing. Outside of the heel. And it just makes for a better pose, I think. Again, trying to make choices, deviating from the reference for later, just to get cleaner silhouettes on these poses, not taking it literally. Trying to clear that back foot so you can see stuff. This is a little murky. I try to analyze my video reference. I try to disassociate myself from the video reference, be like, I think he looks too much like this, even though it's me. But it helps, you know, I give myself animation notes on my video reference. And man, these clavicles are nice. I like this a lot. I like this rig. This is my first time touching this rig, by the way. So if I seem like I don't know what I'm doing, let's go with that's why. I definitely screwed up something with that constraint. I'll fix it later.
Save once in a while.
So here's a fun fact about me. I always forget to save.
Let's do an iteration just to cancel. On the desktop, there's a masterclass folder and Zap.
Is that, you just want to say it here?
It's already at 5, yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to stop and start the recording as well?
Sure.
Seems like
I
a
think
good.
I press continue. It's a student word.
I did. It's thinking.